versus West Virginia. Tonight, we're going to break that super regional down. You know, what's been interesting, a lot has been made of this offense of late and how they've been doing some things. And over the last 2 weeks, in the regional and super regional, you've scored a shitload of runs. Now, you did get beat by Little Rock in a situation where you only could score 4 runs. Don't know if that is going to be the norm for this team, considering what they've done the last 2 weeks. LSU this postseason has averaged 10.16 runs per game. Guys, nothing else matters from an offensive standpoint. I don't give two Rudy Poos how they do it. If that is what their offense is going to do, I don't care if they walk, hit a line drive, hit a bomb. I don't care what LSU does and able to score runs. I even went back 2 years ago, the year that you won the national championship. I was like, well, what did LSU during a situation where they won a national championship in the regional and super regional, how many runs did they score that year? Guys, you've scored more runs in this postseason in those two situations than you did in 2023 when you averaged 9.6 runs per game in the regional and super regional. Now, well, Blake, in the regional, we faced off against a Tulane team that didn't have a winning record. You mean like Little Rock? Now, the difference is that they didn't lose to Tulane again, nor did they play Tulane again. They played Oregon State in that final game. My point is this. Guys, the last 2 weeks, even in one of those bad games and situations with a loss, you're averaging 10 runs this postseason. 10.16 runs to be exact. That has come on, and we talked about this person a lot last night, has mainly come on the back of Steven Milam. You know, like we come on here and we talk about, look, in the SEC tournament, you struggled a lot like what you did in the SEC tournament in 2023. But you get back this postseason, you host a regional, you host a super regional, and you're averaging 10 runs. You do that, you go into Omaha, guys, which I don't think you're going to do, but God forbid you do, all bets are off of what you probably can and will do in that winning the national title, which I don't think you're going to get 10 runs on the road, not in Omaha. But it's really come on the back of some of the guys that have started to get hot here, like Steven Milam. This weekend, Steven Milam in the Super Regional went 1 for 3 on Saturday with 4 RBIs, that being the home run, along with 2 walks and a couple of pair of what should have been hits, but hardly hit balls that Steven Milam does not get on the hit column. The grand slam that blew the game wide open on Saturday for you to win game 1. What LSU's been able to do at the plate, whether it be regional, and what I would determine has been the last month of Steven Milam's at-bats, taking the ball the other way, seeing the ball deep and hitting and barreling the ball up, letting off-speed pitches get deep, not swinging at off-speed pitches at his back foot that are coming inside from the slide pieces, which he really struggled at from a left-handed perspective this season. But a very level swing, hitting the ball really hard and doing what he needs to do, which didn't land in a Sunday where he went 2 for 4 with 4 RBIs and 2 walks, which he also had 2 walks on Saturday as well. Steven Milam's really seeing it. And by the way, in the 2 for 4 last night, you remember what happened in some of those. He had a line drive to the shortstop that quite honestly came off the bat at 100 plus. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I mean, guys, that's just baseball. But he's seeing the ball really well against a top 25 staff in West Virginia. Now, a lot of you were like, and you said in the comments in the postgame when we went back and we looked at it, well, Blake, we did that against West Virginia. There are going to be better teams. You're right. Arkansas is a better team than West Virginia. No one is going to say that it's not. But one thing is for damn sure, West Virginia was not a slouch, especially on the mound. Now, Codsanis maybe was a little bit ill. That's baseball. It is what it is. Things happen. But, guys, you went up against a top 25 pitching staff, and you put up 16 runs and 12 runs, 28 runs in 2 games against a staff who, quite honestly, has been very freaking impressive all season, who went into Clemson and shut them down, who went into a Kentucky game, and when it mattered most, they were able to find enough pitching and get outs, even though Kentucky put a lot of runs on them. But as we recap this super regional, I kind of wanted to make this opening part of this and talking about what you've done just in the postseason in general. The things that have really stood out to me here are X. And guys, it's that you're scoring runs. And that regardless of how you're doing it, and you're not doing it in the way, nor have you all year, are you doing it in the way where you're just hitting the ball out of the ballpark like you've got guys like Dylan Cruz, Gavin Dugas, Tommy White, Braden Jobert. You're not doing the gorilla ball. And even Jay talked about that last night. Was like, listen, guys, we are not doing it this year in the traditional way of what LSU and how they've gotten to Omaha in the past. We've been very great on the mound, and in being very great on the mound, we've been very good defensively, and the offense has gotten back to where they needed to be, a lot like what they did in the Sunday versus Tennessee or the Saturday versus Arkansas, or really when the moment mattered most, the Friday night against Arkansas, which we'll talk about in a minute. They got back to who they were then. Now, this team is a completely different team at home. They always have been this season, and they always will be. Guys, of 35 games this year, 35 games at home this year, they went 30-5. Now, being on the road is where they struggled. And we'll talk about that a lot this week, where it is one of my biggest worries. But looking at the Super Regional, whether it's Steven Milam or whoever at the plate you want to point out, there are three big things that stand out to me from this past weekend. Number one is I felt like that you took massive major league at-bats. I felt like the patience that you showed confirmed a lot of things in the sense of that you're just seeing the ball well. And, guys, they weren't throwing strikes. And the worst thing that you want from an offense is pressing too hard, like what Bear Jones did in the regional, of saying, hey, deep breath, take the ball the other way, and let everything else go. Let everything else go. Guys, how many times did you just hit a hard line drive or a hard ground ball to where they weren't in a shift? How many times did Jared Jones hit a ball off on a rope when he gets an 0-2 curveball and he takes the ball the opposite way? The approach is what matters here, because here's one thing that does travel with you. Approach travels. Approach at the plate will travel. Atmosphere may change. Everything else around you may change. Approach should never change. It should never change. And guys, it didn't this week. The big league approaches comes on a part of where I think Jay Johnson makes his money the best. Look, you struggled. You had some parts in the season that you struggled. And then you turn right around this postseason, guys, you're averaging more than a team that won a national title 2 years ago with superstars and legends. Legends. By the way, with a big bat like Hayden Travinski that came up for you big late. Remember Oregon State? Remember Travinski, and I think it was Beloso that went back-to-back in that game 6 scenario against Oregon State? I love the approach. The second thing that I love here in recapping this weekend was I felt like that you came through in most big game situations. Like, were there some times like the Ethan Fry strikeout last night with 2 runners on? Yeah. Okay, fine. But I felt like that every single time when you had runners on, you were going to get the job done. And guys, quite frankly, you did. You see, the question had been all season from an offensive side of things was, were you going to get the big hits when they mattered to blow a game wide open? Guys, quite frankly, and I understand the Little Rock loss, But when the moment mattered the most, whether it be Luis Hernandez's 2 massive home runs in Game 7, whether it be Bear Jones hitting a home run in his last at-bat versus Little Rock, whether it be the grand slam from Steven Milam, Josh Pearson, whether it be the outright bang from Jake Brown, whether it be the Chris Stanfield hit right to the 4-hole with them being in the shift that plates 2 runs. Is it a 2 outs where you draw a walk that starts a rally from Chris Stanfield where you get a walk, Curiel walks, Fry walks, and then in walks up Steven Milam with a base hit down the line in the right field that's going to plate you 3 runs. It felt like every single time that you needed to really focus and lock in, and when a big moment was there, you showed up. But the biggest thing for me in this Super Regional is very simple and very easy. Guys, for the first time this season, your starting pitchers did not have the stuff. Meaning, Cade Anderson, who had been so amazing this season, Anthony Ianson, who had been so amazing this season, because they didn't have great outings. A really good offensive lineup in West Virginia got to them. And for the first time this year, the pressure wasn't all on them to win at a high level. Because offensively, when your 2 starting pitchers were down and have carried you the entire season, which Anthony Ianson and Cade Anderson have carried you the entire season, when they were off of their game, quote unquote, in air quotes, the offense is the one that said, hey, we got you. Just go throw some strikes. We got you. We're not losing this. They did something that national title teams and national title champions do. That when one part of your game is slipping, the other one picks them up. And that had been the complaint, right? For an example, you get swept by Auburn. Well, Blake, the pitching wasn't bad. You did some good things on the mound. You could not hit. Or Texas A&M, Blake, the pitching was elite. Literally elite by Anthony Ianson and Cade Anderson. Could not come up with the big hits when you needed them. But this time when it mattered most, because this was the time that it mattered most. And I don't think that West Virginia is a worse team than A&M. I think A&M's got more talent, but West Virginia is a better team to me. When you look at those situations and say, well, when it was all on the line, you said, listen, we got you. We got you. Because national title teams, whether it be in any singular sport, whether it be baseball, whether it be football, whether it be basketball, regardless of the activity in sport, I feel like all national title teams have one massive thing in common. That massive thing in common is when you hit your biggest amount of adversity, how do you respond? Like when you get in a Game 7 scenario against a team that's red hot in Little Rock and believing in everything that they can do, what do? Well, you score 10 runs. When you go into a Game 1 and Cade Anderson's a little bit off, don't worry about that, bro. We're going to hit 2 slams. It doesn't matter. We're going to hit 2 slams. We got you, dog. Our approach is going to be the best. You know, I think of, as an example, I think of the LSU football season in 2019 when LSU versus Auburn and gets a really good defense, and that defense making some massive stands. I think of that defense against Clemson making some massive stands early when Joe Burrow and company could really get moving, which they did. To be an elite team, you got to be complete. And you got to be complete when it matters the most. And if there's one thing about the Super Regional and really just the postseason that I've felt, it has clearly been that offensively, and it might not be the way that you like it to be. You might want your team to hit the ball all over the park because that's the LSU way. Who gives a shit? Who gives a flying shit? Because when it mattered most, you performed. It comes on the back of Josh Pearson, who says, "Thank you to the greatest fans in college baseball at his last at bat." For the final time, Josh Pearson, the glue of your team. It comes on the back of Ethan Fry. It comes on the back of Bear Jones, which, speaking of Bear Jones, went 500 in the Super Regional. If I would have told you a week ago today that after the home run, that Bear Jones would go into the Super Regional versus West Virginia, and I didn't tell you the games, and I didn't tell you the situation, and I told you he would hit 500, and he wouldn't get hurt, and everything, like he's going to play the entire time, that Bear Jones would be 500 on the weekend. He wouldn't have a home run, but he'd have an RBI. But he'd go 4 for 8. And in that 4 for 8, he would have a pair of walks and a hit by pitch. You would say, I mean, shit. What are those 4 hits? Did that home run against Little Rock, sparked Jared Jones to get where he was. Now, something that was interesting about Jared Jones, and something that Jay Johnson talked about in his postgame last night that I thought was the most intriguing about this Super Regional, is Jay Johnson was asked about the approach and mentality of his team offensively. And he acknowledged the struggles of Steven Milam this season. He acknowledged the struggles of Bear Jones. And what we told you in the postgame last Sunday night, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday last when you lost to Little Rock, was that during the show we had heard that Bear Jones, Steven Milam, and Danny Dickinson had stayed after the game to put more work in after what they felt was a bad day at the office for them. And Jay Johnson acknowledged it in the postgame and saying, I understood what was happening in the game, but I also understood all the amount of work this postseason and the lock-in focus that you're getting from the backbone of your team. Guys, elite teams, not even more than just elite teams, national championship caliber teams look exactly like this. It does not mean that they're going to win it. They could go 0-2 in Omaha, and everything we're talking about is a byproduct of, listen, you just couldn't go on the road, couldn't do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't mean that the work and the things that you're putting forth effort to does not lead to national championships, because it does. And there's a lot of factors that go into it outside of just putting in extra work. But, guys, that's what I want my team to be. It sounds like their head coach. It sounds like their head coach. So when I look at just more than the Super Regional, when I look at the regional, when I look at the Super Regional and say to myself, listen, man, we can make all the complaints that we want. We can say whatever we want. You're averaging 10 runs this postseason so far. For the first time all season, your starting pitchers, well, they got touched up a little bit. And I think that that's not going to happen moving forward. I do not believe that that will continue to happen. I think you go into Omaha and you have great performances from those young men. If you can continue to keep things up offensively, the sky is the limit for you for what you can achieve. Guys, you're here now. Might as well go win it, but you're here. I have a lot of faith in this team. You are in for a battle, and you are in for a dogfight. You're in for a dogfight on what might be the most talented team out there outside of you, and that being Arkansas. Now, we're going to preview Arkansas here in just a minute and preview what happened that Friday night of what would be the most comparable game to the pitching staff and everything that you'll probably see. But, man, I tell you, you're coming on at the right time, and I'm glad of seeing it.